Hey, I'm Jax, and I'm gonna answer the age-old question. Can I turn this chair into a corset to make the chair set? So let's start designing. Stop. Please stop. Stop. Okay. Okay, I'm a little dizzy. Okay. So let's start designing. Okay. So I don't know if you noticed, but recently I got a new chair. So I thought to myself, well, I do a series where I take weird things and turn them into corsets. So I'm gonna take my old chair that's kind of fallen apart and tear it apart, because this is probably one of the only times that I actually have access to a chair to do this. So normally in this kind of section of the video, I would do like jump cuts and zoom ins of all the fun destruction, but I'm gonna be honest, the chair's kind of gross. I've been using this for like 4 or 5 years at this point, and the section between the mesh and the plastic back, there's no getting in there, so it's just kind of full of yuckiness. So we're just gonna zoom on past that, and we're gonna jump to the next section of the video, okay? Okay. So let's set this aside, and I'll take a look at this and see how much I actually have to work with. So I took a look at it. The answer is not a lot. So we're gonna go with the mesh bustier style this time, and it's gonna end up being a little bit smaller than my pattern here, just because of how the actual fabric ends up working. So this pattern, we're gonna have no seam allowance. We're gonna do the zigzag stitch style. I don't remember the actual proper terminology for the zigzag stitch style. I'm just gonna keep calling it the zigzag stitch style. I said that 3 times in a sentence, and it's difficult words to say. Anyway, there's a pattern, no seam allowance, except for the mid seam of the cups, so that way we can actually get our curve nice and good, because that fabric is going to be made out of the leather headrest, or the pleather headrest, not like leather. Hey, but if you're enjoying this video, you should drop a like on it. You should like the video. So here's our pattern. Now I'm gonna go check and see if my fabric is clean and I can start cutting everything out. All right, I did a little bit of cleaning of this. It smells nice, much better. Let's start cutting everything out. All right, so we're gonna cut everything out. We're making sure to get 2 of each piece. We're gonna fold our mesh in half, making sure we get a left and a right of each piece, except we're not gonna cut the mesh out of the cups. We're gonna actually use the headrest material. We're also gonna use the embroidery, because I was running out of space. So we're just gonna call it an intentional design decision. Yeah? Okay. We're also gonna cut out interfacing and lining, so that way it's nice and firm and it's not uncomfortable to wear. Cool, so here's everything cut out. So now it's time to get the sewing. So let's switch camera angles. All right, it's prep work time. So first we're gonna sew our face to our interfacing, and then we're gonna sew our seams and then open them up, sew them down, so that way everything looks nice and clean. We're also gonna sew our lining, and then put those 2 pieces together, so that way once we actually get to sewing on the cups to the main body, they're all prepped and ready. I also, off camera, just did a little serging around the edges, so everything's extra nice, extra clean, and pretty looking. Okay, since we finished these up, let's switch over to sewing everything else together. So let's get to doing that. So our first stitch here, so we gotta push everything together. Cool. So now we slide over to this machine and we sew down some bias tape on top of it. Cool. So now let's do that for the rest of them. It's the big sewing portion of the video. So you know what that means. It's tier-list time, let's go! Every Willow corset, we throw our material that we're working with onto the tier list, and the chair, is a B tier, it's all right. The thickness of the holes of the mesh is really kind of messing with how everything goes together. I like sew down a seam, but then I have to re-sew it because I wound up in like just big gaps between where the mesh sews together. So that was kind of annoying. But once I actually added in my bone channels, everything stuck together, but it was unpleasant and kind of made the front a little wobbly and not like super clean looking. So I just had to kind of cut off a little bit more than I would have liked to make everything work. It did work, but it's just a little bit shorter than originally planned. Also, once we get to the cups, we're just gonna do that same zigzag stitch and then add some bias around the bottom so that way it looks nice and you don't see that seam. All right, cool. Now that this is all sewed together, let's head over to the cutting table and we can add in our bones. Okay, so this is all sewed up. We're gonna set this aside. Our next step is to add in the bones. So I brought back the old chair and my goal is I'm going to attempt to cut off some of the plastic up here and turn that into the bones that are gonna go into the corset. Keyword in that sentence is try, but I am going to make an attempt. It's breaking really bad. Let me try and get the bolt cutters and chop off a bigger piece, maybe like over here. If that doesn't work, we're gonna give up and use normal bones. Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm gonna make this work. Okay, this is not gonna work, so we're just gonna head back over to the cutting table and just use regular bones. But I did make the attempt. To have it be known, I did try. All right, let's add the bones to the bone channels. Well, I guess let's just use the plastic bones. I tried. But you know, we're cutting half an inch from the top and half an inch from the bottom and then sliding the bones into their individual bone channels like you're supposed to do. I tried, man. I really wanted to use the actual chair inside the chair set, but it just didn't work. Okay, next step. Now, all we gotta do is seal everything up. So let's do that. Alright, so all we're doing here is sewing 1/4 inch on the top. Then we're gonna flip that fabric over, show a top stitch, so that way everything is nice and closed and clean looking. Yeah! And then we do that for the top and the bottom. Cool. Now let's add our grommets and then we can see it on the form. Hammer time! Loud hammer grazing your screen, let's go! Alright, let's list this up on the form now. Before we see the completed chair set on the form, if you made it this far in the video, maybe consider subscribing. I worked really hard on these, so I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Cool. So there it is. I think it turned out pretty good. Alright, so cut to me in front of a green screen to give my final thoughts. So there you have it. The answer to the age-old question, can you turn a chair into a corset? Is yes, and it looks pretty cool. Yeah, I'm pretty happy how this turned out. I am just a little bit disappointed that I couldn't get the bones thing to work, but if we're being honest with ourselves, it will probably just be a 10 situation again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go watch the 10 video. But overall, pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with this one. So, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment on what weird material I should use next. And I'll chair you later. Oh, by the way, new video series coming out this Wednesday. And as a teaser, I'm just gonna say a year. 1983.